of Syarikat Prasarana Negara Bhd being here today. Today's briefing session.
Akta yang YB mentioned is where the landowner has to apply for a stratum. That means as the landowner, before, let's say we want to do this tunneling and not to activate the Land Acquisition Compulsory Act, the landowner on his own accord must be willing to apply to the land office for a stratum to allow this tunnel to go underneath his land. Yeah, and to avoid the complication of dealing, I mean, we have not tested the case, but whether the landowner themselves are willing to apply to the land office for the stratum title for the tunnel to go through. There are two distinct areas here. One is land for the station, underground station, and one is land for the tunnel. Yeah. For the underground station, we need to acquire the land above where the underground station sits. If not, there's no way we can build the underground station. Whatever is on top of the land, we have to demolish the building, dig a deep hole in the ground for the station, right? So how else can we do it without acquiring your land? For the tunnel, like I mentioned, we are going underneath the land, and because of the zoning and the safety reason, we have to acquire, because like I mentioned earlier, unless the owner applies for stratum title, which I think at this point of time more details have to be discussed with land office, which also I think the gentleman earlier raised it. We can also raise during the hearing. Yeah. So for the real plus property model, what we're saying is we can acquire the land for the underground station and build our underground station, and that's it. No need to do anything else, right? And then we borrow money from the market to pay for the MRT station, which is for the benefit of all of us, the public, for efficient public transport. So to make use or to maximize the potential land that we already have, which is on top of the underground station, that's why we are looking at Hong Kong to offset the cost of the construction. And to offset the cost of construction is also to save the public's money, right? If we don't offset the cost of construction, the more money we have to borrow for this public purpose, which is not for Prasarana, it's for all of us, for you, for me, for our children to have an efficient public transport. We are just maximizing the land above the station, that's all. The land above the tunnel, like I said, we also will not be doing any development because it's a no zone development. So what development are we going to do? Nothing, because of the safety of the tunnel. So I don't think there's any case of we taking advantage of landowners and acquiring land for station just for us to do property. No, it's just an opportunity is there. If even then we are not property developers, we will JV with renowned developers in town, and most probably the property developer will be the one raking most of the profit. We are just providing the space for development. When we do the alignment, there's a lot of factors we look into. Okay, I mean, we can avoid going to Jalan Bukit Bintang. There's no MRT there, right? So I mean, that would not get approval of the government. The purpose of public transport is to go to areas where people want to go and where there's enough demand and enough catchment. And Bukit Bintang is one area where I think the MRT has to go. If you look at Singapore, Hong Kong, all the main tourist spots has a MRT system, right? So, and I said we try to minimize land acquisition as much as possible, but it's impossible to minimize land acquisition in Kuala Lumpur because everything is already built up. So we try to be as much as we can below the road. That's why we even stack our tunnel just to be within Jalan Bukit Bintang, but there are areas where we just cannot avoid. And like I said, maybe we only hit 1/3 of your land, but of course taking away 1/3 will make the other 2/3 useless. That's why in the end of the day, the owner can request the government to acquire everything, right? So those are the things that the details we look into. It's not that we just purposely want to acquire your land. No, we either go on exactly under Bukit Bintang, which we found that we can't, even with the step tunnel, there are lands affected. So either on one side or the other side. The other side is Bukit Bintang Plaza. It's a big complex. Yeah. So those and this alignment is constrained by the technical parameters where the curve has to be a certain diameter. We cannot turn 90 degrees. It has to be a gentle curve of 300 meters. So those are the things that the engineers looked at. When we asked the engineers to look at it, we asked them to, as much as possible, minimize the social impact. But certain areas cannot be avoided. Because there's so many landowners affected by this alignment. If one landowner, say if 99 landowners out of 100 applies for this stratum title, right, and one landowner doesn't, the whole thing will fail. Because, right? Because how can we then have a different arrangement with one landowner and different arrangement with 99 landowners? I think if we want to go on certain arrangement, everybody affected by the whole alignment has to agree on this arrangement, right? Because if not, we will be saddled with negotiations on different terms with different landowners. At the end of the day, we also don't know when we can start this project. So I think we hear you. There are a lot of details we are still discussing with land office, right? And these issues will also be raised during the hearing. And at the same time, land office will look at the stratum title. How can it be applied for this case? And but for the time being, doesn't mean that once we put Section 8 acquisition in, doesn't mean that there's no way we can withdraw it. There's always once we come up with a better solution, there may be a possibility. So what I'm saying is, as we put in land acquisition because of the timeline, yeah, because we are based on the implementation schedule of our construction, we have to start at a certain time. But at the same time, in parallel, we are also studying at ways where we can minimize the impact to the landowners. You know, that's why we are having these kind of sessions. If we are not interested to hear the landowners, we will not arrange such sessions. We will just go ahead and acquire.